Our movie begins with Mallory going to Denver for her wedding rehearsal because she is getting married shortly. She then uses a video connection to speak to her sister Ella, giving the impression that she is procrastinating by saying she is taking the leisurely way. Mallory reassures Ella that she is happy when Ella admits she hasn't booked her trip yet and wonders if her sister is doing good. A little while later, when Mallory travels on, Brad leaves her a message, apologizing that they would not be going on their honeymoon. Then he begs her to take care of his car and says he'll make it up to her, but Mallory is no longer interested in listening to him. Mallory then decides to take a detour, but her car soon breaks down. Mallory is forced to try to diagnose the problem with the automobile, but only succeeds in becoming soiled. So, before attempting to phone AAA, she washes her hands and takes off her engagement ring. That there is no service, they're much worse. Mallory unintentionally pours Coke on herself at the same moment. Angrily exiting the car to change into new clothing, Mallory is surprised by a man who suddenly approaches her. Mallory accepts the guy's aid and he ultimately restores her car, but he won't take any money from her. Mallory decides to just drive off, but she quickly changes her mind and waits for Christian to pick up the man. Christian confronts Mallory about her life as they are driving. Mallory then discusses her connection with Ella and says that they are their sole possession, which makes Ella feel ashamed that she is revealing such information with a total stranger. Christian doesn't mind, though, and asks Mallory to tell him about her fiancé in order to learn more about her. A little while later, Christian begins discussing serendipity, but he assures Mallory that he is not making out with her. Unfortunately, Mallory feels awkward when Christian says something disrespectful to her and she asks him to exit the vehicle. Mallory tries to get away, but Christian stops her, brandishing a knife and warning her that if she disobeys him, he won't hesitate to harm her. However, Christian has other ideas. Now that he's in charge, Christian tells a scared Mallory to take the next exit and drive to an abandoned hotel. Mallory then sees that Christian isn't using his seatbelt, so she accelerates in the direction of a railing while rounding a bend and crashes the automobile. Mallory later wakes up to discover the car upside down, and as she tries to get out, she quickly learns that her leg is trapped in the seat. Just to top it off, Mallory slashes her arm while attempting to release herself. Mallory fights the urge to scream in order to keep Christian, who is unresponsive outside the car, from hearing her. Mallory tends to her wound while frantically attempting to reach for the knife that Christian dropped despite the discomfort. Christian regains consciousness a few seconds later, just as Mallory gets her hands on the knife. Mallory is then made fun of before he leaves, telling her that she is now on her own. Mallory then searches for her phone and cries out for help, but no one responds. Mallory attempts unsuccessfully that evening to kick her door open. When she starts to become cold, she puts on a sweatshirt and even wraps herself in her bridal gown. She likewise switches on the heating and tries to sleep, but is abruptly awakened by the sound of twigs breaking. Mallory, who is terrified, glances around and notices some tree limbs falling. She grabs the knife and is ready to protect herself from whatever is nearby. The following morning, Mallory awakens to find ants crawling all over her. She then takes a sip of water before rummaging through Christian's belongings that he unintentionally left behind. Mallory must spend yet another night there, and when she discovers the ring she took off earlier, she can't help but feel sad. Christian comes back the following morning only to make fun of Mallory. He informs her that he discovered a cabin downstream and speculates as to when its occupants could return. Mallory's actions caused Mallory to drive off the road, and Christian wonders whether she believed he was going to assault her. Mallory, on the other hand, decides to remain silent and let Christian speak. Christian refuses to aid Mallory after she informs him she needs food and drinks a little while later, before inquiring about Mallory's first encounter with a man. He even consumes food and beverages in her presence. However, when Christian discovers Mallory won't communicate, he becomes frustrated and gets ready to go. Mallory starts talking about the first time she slept with a man because she is afraid of being alone again, and Christian makes sure to be well informed about it. Christian is obviously trying to make Mallory look bad by getting her to reveal things she won't even admit to herself. Christian, on the other hand, immediately detects Mallory's deceit and knows that the tale she just told him was about Ella. Christian then takes the meal and turns to leave, admonishing Mallory not to always say what others want to hear. As night strikes, Mallory is left alone once more. She has no choice but to go through the items in her car, including Christian's ID. She then attaches it to a brief message for Ella claiming that Christian was responsible for the woman's death. In the event that she passes away, Mallory plans to conceal the ID and message in the car, and she can only pray that Ella will find out the truth. Mallory uses the lighter she discovered in the car to light a fire a little while later. Despite burning a portion of her wedding gown, she doesn't feel horrible about it for some reason. Mallory then uses only a few damp wipes to clean herself before quickly falling asleep. Mallory quickly awakens, though, and notices that rats are all about her. Despite her horror, she manages to chase the rodents away and even kill one of them with her key. Mallory then softly sobs because she can't believe she is in that circumstance as she chops the rat open and prepares its meat. Mallory then gives Christian's wallet another look and discovers an old family photo inside. Mallory decides to just take a nap since she realizes that seeing that photo won't help her go. The buzzing of Mallory's phone wakes her awake the next morning. She then hurriedly attempts to summon Ella using a twig to get to it, but Christian appears out of nowhere. Mallory conceals her phone and listens to Christian as he explains that when the cabin owners returned home, he had to take care of them. Christian then makes fun of Mallory for eating a rat while simultaneously praising her for her bravery. Christian, however, quickly learns that Mallory has a phone and tries to remove it from her. Mallory then uses the knife to fight back, but Christian is still able to take her phone. Mallory can only cry for assistance and convince Christian that she has already contacted the police, but he destroys her phone when he realizes she is lying. Mallory begs Christian to let her go out of need, but he wants to have fun with her. Mallory is also informed by him that no one is going to rescue her and that she is on her own. Then, as Christian is ready to head back to the cabin, Mallory stops him and offers to do whatever he wants. Christian then exhibits a saw to Mallory, instructing her to use it to cut herself free. Christian is aware of this, but Mallory is certain that it won't cut through the door. Mallory then sobs and asks Christian what made him change into a nasty guy as she knows what he wants her to do. Mallory launches into a discussion of Christian's relatives to buy some time. Christian, however, just chuckles at Mallory and says he's not the boy in the picture she discovered. Before giving Mallory the saw and walking away, he informs her that she is there for a reason and encourages her to take matters into her own hands. When Mallory is by herself, she begins slicing through the door but only ends up breaking the saw. She then attempts to chop off her leg with the blade but eventually gives up. Following that, Mallory passes out and awakens with hunger, but she is out of water. Mallory doesn't care how repulsive it is, she just drinks her own urine. Mallory is able to get some water that evening as it begins to rain. She also learns that there may be serious floods in certain areas due to the weather from the news on the radio at the same time. Christian then shows up and approaches Mallory, who then applies the rat's guts on her thigh while feigning sleep. Christian notices that and assumes that Mallory truly attempted to chop off her leg. He then pokes her with a tiny branch to determine whether she is awake. Once Christian is certain Mallory is unconscious, he climbs into the car and that's when he learns she's playing a prank on him. Mallory, unfortunately, won't go down without a fight, which is bad news for Christian. Then Mallory stabs Christian before grabbing his keys and tossing them into the trash after first setting off his vehicle alarm. It's still raining, and angry Christian starts seeking his keys. Mallory, on the other hand, tries to escape and cries out for assistance as soon as she sees some automobiles on the road. Then Christian turns off his alarm and disregards the passing cars, but a police officer soon arrives. The policeman is trying to figure out how to assist Christian, who claims he locked his keys inside the car by mistake. Christian then requests a ride from the police to the cabin down the river, and the trusting officer agrees to take him. Unfortunately, the officer is unaware of Christian's level of danger and misses the radio announcement regarding Mallory, who has been reported missing. However, when the officer hears Mallory banging the horn, he chooses to explore the place, but due to the darkness and severe rain, he ultimately departs with Christian. Mallory fails in her attempt to get the officer's attention in the meanwhile. She also becomes aware that the river is currently overflowing and that she is running out of time. Mallory attempts furiously to chop off her leg and cries in pain as the car begins to flood. Mallory is able to escape her impasse thanks to the swift stream, which ultimately sweeps the automobile away. Mallory's horror is sadly not yet ended because she still needs to figure out how to exit the vehicle. Mallory eventually manages to get away from the car and swims fast in the direction of the riverside. Despite being worn out and hurt, she is nevertheless grateful to be alive. Then Mallory begins to hobble away while holding onto a tree limb. Mallory eventually makes it to the cabin farther down the river. Mallory is unable to leave the girl alone since she can also hear a girl screaming inside the house. Mallory silently makes her way to the cabin despite her excruciating discomfort, where she she discovers it is completely ringed by bear traps. Mallory makes a more cautious approach this time and glances through the window to see a female bound to the bed. She also sees Christian use a nail gun to harm the policeman before murdering him. Christian heads upstairs, and when Mallory enters the cabin behind him, she discovers the homeowner's decomposing remains. Mallory grabs the officer's gun despite her fear and runs off to hide, after helping the house owner's daughter, Katie. When Christian enters the room, she hurriedly hides behind the door after Christian talks to Katie about her actions while sitting on the bed, unaware that Mallory is present. Mallory makes a move and aims the revolver at him. Mallory and Christian fight when Christian lunges forward and tries to take the rifle from her. Katie tries to aid Mallory by climbing onto Christian's back, but the man just knocks her to the ground. Katie is then told to leave by Mallory while she bites Christian's arm and scrapes his face. As she runs, Katie immediately hides to avoid the crazed man catching up to her. Christian explores the cabin without realizing Mallory is hiding beneath the table while he speaks about how much fun he's having as a result of her. Sadly, Christian quickly locates Mallory and grabs her, joyfully pushing her body against the wall. Then, as Mallory is about to knife Christian to death, she knees him in the crotch and prods the wound. Mallory then goes upstairs and unlocks the balcony doors to give Christian the impression that she is already there. Mallory, who is really lurking next to the bed, pushes Christian from the balcony without hesitation. Christian regrettably ends up trapping his leg in a bear trap and crushing it. Mallory is making fun of Christian as he writhes in agony. She then kicks the knife in Christian's direction, offering him the same opportunity he did for her. Mallory then ultimately departs with Katie after informing Christian that he was in the incorrect vehicle in the meanwhile. Christian tries to implore Mallory for assistance despite this, but he soon passes away from his injuries. This is how our movie ends. Leave us a comment on how you found this movie recap. See you in the following movie recap.